The biggest one-year wonders in NFL history. Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow entered the NFL carrying top-tier college hype that felt impossible to live up to. Yet for one strange stretch in 2011, he bent the league to his will. After Denver stumbled to a 1-4 start, Tebow took completely over and wins followed.
To the most talked about player in the National Football League, Tim Tebow.
7 of them in 11 starts. Despite throwing for only 1,729 yards and completing fewer than half his passes. Tebow was beyond average for 3 quarters, but when the game got late, Tebow scrambled, improvised, sent a prayer, and somehow turned broken plays into points. He engineered multiple fourth-quarter comebacks, dragged the Broncos to an AFC West title, and turned every Sunday into controlled panic. The moment that sealed the memory came in the playoffs against Pittsburgh, when Tebow threw for a career-high 316 yards and ended the game on the first snap of overtime with an 80-yard touchdown to Demaryius Thomas. 1 week later, New England ended the run. One offseason later, Peyton Manning was on the Jets, a cemetery where too often careers go to die. After 2012, Tebow never started another NFL game, even taking a stab at the MLB, but that one Magic season felt unreal while it happened, even if it disappeared without warning. Peyton Hillis.
This Hillis is a runaway train. He's going to have nightmares about Peyton.
Peyton Hillis looked like a depth chart footnote until injuries forced Cleveland to hand him the ball in 2010, and once that door opened, it looked like it would never close. Built like a linebacker, Hillis ran with violence, finishing the season with 1,177 rushing yards, 11 rushing touchdowns, and another 477 yards as a receiver. Defenders bounced off him, safeties got stiff-armed into highlights, and snow games turned into personal showcases. His defining performance came in Week 9 against New England, when Hillis crushed the Patriots for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dragging Cleveland to a win nobody expected. He scored in each of the first 5 games, became the emotional engine of the Browns offense, and somehow ended the year on the Madden 12 cover. Then the momentum vanished. Whether it was from illness, injuries, tension over a new contract, or the Madden curse, Peyton's production nearly split in half the following season. Cleveland moved on, and so did the league. Hillis never reached 600 rushing yards again, leaving one unforgettable year frozen in time for Browns fans. Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon's 2013 season felt like the league accidentally allowed a cheat code onto the field. Despite missing the first 2 games to suspension, Gordon still led the NFL with 1,646 receiving yards in just 14 games, catching passes from a revolving door of quarterbacks. He torched defenses with back-to-back 200-yard games in weeks 12 and 13, something no player had ever done, and averaged over 117 yards per game on a 4-win team. At 22, Gordon combined size, speed, and body control in a way that made double coverage pointless. Cornerbacks panicked, safeties arrived late, and Cleveland kept losing anyway. Then it stopped. Suspensions, relapses, reinstatements, and long absences turned brilliance into fragments. Gordon returned briefly, flashed occasionally, and kept getting chances. But the version that terrorized the league never came back. One season turned him into mythology, and every comeback only reminded fans how short that window really was. He finished his career with one 1,000-yard season, a stat line that barely hints at how dominant he once looked. That fall defined everything. Robert Griffin III. Robert Griffin III's rookie year hit the NFL like a lightning strike. In 2012, he walked into Washington and immediately changed everything. Throwing for 3,200 yards, rushing for 815, and accounting for 27 total touchdowns. He posted a 102.4 passer rating, the highest ever by a rookie, and dragged a team that had won 15 games across 3 seasons into the playoffs. Defenses froze, trying to decide whether to spy him or drop coverage, and he punished both. Washington won 7 straight games down the stretch, stole the division, and finally mattered again. Then January arrived. On a torn knee and a rushed recovery, Griffin collapsed in the wildcard round, and the explosion faded. He lost his burst, absorbed hits, and never regained control of the offense. Within 3 years, he lost the job, bounced into backups, and disappeared from relevance. That rookie season remains untouched, a snapshot of a future that vanished before it could even start. Washington still remembers the electricity because it never returned. Not until Jaden Daniels, at least, who somehow seems to be following in Griffin's footsteps identically as a one-season wonder. Ickey Woods. Ickey Woods burst into the league in 1988, and for one joyful season, football felt fun. The Bengals rookie rumbled for 1,066 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns, bulldozing defenders at 5.3 yards per carry while dancing his way into pop culture. The Ickey Shuffle followed every score, turning end zones into celebrations and Cincinnati into must-watch television. Woods didn't just dance, he delivered. He torched Buffalo for 3 touchdowns, dominated playoff games, and powered the Bengals to Super Bowl 23. At only 23 years old, he looked like the next great back. Then the league reminded everyone how fragile it is. 2 games into 1989, Woods tore his ACL, an injury that crushed careers in that era. He returned, but the burst was gone, the carries vanished, and by 26, he was finished. The Shuffle lived on longer than the production. One season created an icon, and nothing afterward ever came close to matching the joy he gave fans. Cincinnati never forgot it because it happened too fast. Blink once, and it was over. Derek Anderson. Derek Anderson was supposed to be a placeholder, not a savior. Thrust into Cleveland's lineup in 2007, he unexpectedly caught fire, throwing for 3,787 yards and 29 touchdowns while leading the Browns to 10 wins, their best season in over a decade. He pushed the ball deep, turned Braylon Edwards into a star, and made Sundays in Cleveland feel dangerous. The Browns scored freely, beat contenders, and missed the playoffs only on a tiebreaker. Anderson earned a Pro Bowl nod and a contract extension, and for 1 year, belief felt real. Then reality hit. His mechanics unraveled, turnovers piled up, and the offense collapsed. By 2008, he was benched, booed, and broken. Over the next decade, Anderson added just 10 more career wins, drifting into backup duty before quietly exiting the league. That 2007 season now stands alone, a reminder of how fast hope can vanish in Cleveland. One autumn of deep throes and belief, followed by years of waiting for it to happen again, but it never did. Case Keenum. Case Keenum spent years as an afterthought, bouncing from roster to roster until fate finally blinked. In 2017, injuries forced Minnesota to trust him, and Keenum responded with the season of his life. He threw for 3,547 yards, 22 touchdowns, and just 7 interceptions, guiding the Vikings to a 13-3 record. He stayed poised, delivered on third down, and built instant chemistry with Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. The defining moment came in the playoffs. With 10 seconds left, Keenum launched a sideline throw that Diggs turned into the Minneapolis Miracle, a walk-off touchdown that stunned New Orleans. For one night, he felt untouchable. A week later, Philadelphia crushed the dream. Minnesota moved on, and Keenum chased that feeling again. Denver, Washington, Cleveland, Buffalo, but the magic never returned. He settled into backup work, respected but replaceable. That 2017 run remains frozen in time, a perfect storm of timing, trust, and belief that never reformed. Sometimes the window opens once and closes forever. Keenum climbed through it exactly one time, nothing more and nothing less. Tommy Maddox. Tommy Maddox's career arc barely resembles a normal NFL timeline, which is exactly why his 2002 season still feels surreal. Drafted in the first round by Denver in 1992, Maddox struggled immediately, bouncing between teams and eventually falling so far out of the league that he left football entirely to sell insurance. His name felt finished until a strange detour through the Arena League and the XFL revived his confidence and put him back on the radar. When Pittsburgh signed him as a backup, expectations were minimal. But once he replaced a struggling starter, the offense suddenly came alive. Maddox threw for nearly 2,900 yards and 20 touchdowns in just 11 starts, went 7-3-1, and led a dramatic playoff comeback against Cleveland after trailing by 17 points. He won Comeback Player of the Year and briefly convinced Pittsburgh it had found stability at quarterback. That belief didn't last. The following season brought turnovers, inconsistency, and diminishing results. And by 2004, he was replaced by a rookie you may have heard of named Ben Roethlisberger. Maddox never reclaimed relevance, leaving behind one improbable year that burned bright before quietly fading. Don Majkowski. Don Majkowski's rise in 1989 felt like Green Bay finally discovering magic again after years of quarterback instability. Nicknamed the Magic Man, Majkowski exploded in his first full season as a starter, leading the NFL with 4,318 passing yards while throwing 27 touchdowns and guiding the Packers to a 10-6 record. He engineered 7 game-winning drives, tying a league record at the time, and repeatedly erased deficits with fearless downfield throws. His signature moment came in Week 2 against New Orleans, when he rallied Green Bay from a 21-0 hole with 354 yards and 3 touchdowns, announcing himself to the league. By season's end, he finished second in MVP voting and made the Pro Bowl, looking like the quarterback who could restore the franchise. Then everything unraveled. Injuries chipped away at his mechanics, his efficiency collapsed, and the wins dried up. Within a few seasons, Majkowski was battling for snaps and eventually lost his job to a young Brett Favre. That 1989 season remains the outlier. A brief moment where Green Bay believed it had its savior before history took a different turn entirely. Steve Slaton. Steve Slaton's rookie season in 2008 arrived quietly and ended just as fast. But for 1 year, he looked like the future of Houston's offense. Drafted in the 3rd round, Slaton seized the starting job almost immediately and finished with 1,282 rushing yards, 9 rushing touchdowns, and nearly 400 receiving yards. His burst was electric, his cuts were sharp, and defenses struggled to square him up in space. He posted 5 100-yard rushing games, including a late-season stretch that pushed Houston to an 8-8 finish and gave the franchise its first true offensive identity. Slaton wasn't just productive, he was versatile, catching screens, slipping through seams, and forcing linebackers into impossible matchups. Then the wheels came off. A neck injury robbed him of strength and confidence, fumbling issues piled up, and his role evaporated almost overnight. By his 3rd season, he was barely used, and by 2011, he was out of the league entirely. One explosive rookie year carried his legacy, standing alone as a glimpse of what might have been before his body refused to cooperate. Barry Foster. Barry Foster's 1992 season remains one of the most dominant rushing performances in Pittsburgh history, yet it stands strangely isolated from the rest of his career. Taking over as the Steelers' lead back, Foster carried the ball an astonishing 390 times for 1,690 yards and 11 touchdowns, tying an NFL record with 12 100-yard rushing games. He was the engine of the offense, grinding defenses down with volume, balance, and relentless physicality while Pittsburgh won the AFC Central. Foster finished second in MVP voting, earned first-team All-Pro honors, and looked poised to become the next great Steelers running back. The following seasons never matched that peak. Injuries began to limit his availability, his workload dropped, and his efficiency followed. After a brief stint with Carolina, Foster failed a physical and walked away from football entirely. Nearly half of his career rushing yardage came in that 1 year, making 1992 feel like a self-contained chapter rather than the start of something bigger. For Steelers fans, Foster's name is forever tied to that season, when everything clicked once and never again. Alfred Morris. Alfred Morris emerged in 2012 as the quiet backbone of Washington's explosive offense, delivering a rookie season that no one saw coming. Drafted in the 6th round out of Florida Atlantic, Morris rushed for 1,613 yards and 13 touchdowns, finishing second in the league behind only Adrian Peterson. Running behind a zone-read scheme with Robert Griffin III, Morris showed elite vision, patience, and balance, consistently finding cutback lanes and punishing defenders who underestimated him. Washington rode that ground attack to a division title, and Morris fumbled just once all season, making him as reliable as he was productive. While he remained solid for several years, including back-to-back 1,000-yard campaigns, that rookie explosion was never replicated. As the offense shifted and Griffin declined, Morris's role slowly diminished, turning him into a rotational piece rather than a focal point. He carved out a respectable career, but the magic of 2012 stood apart, a season where everything aligned perfectly. That year transformed him from anonymous late-round pick into a franchise cornerstone, if only for a brief moment before the league adjusted and moved on. Gary Barnidge. Gary Barnidge waited nearly a decade for his moment, and when it finally arrived in 2015, it came out of nowhere. At 30 years old and in his 8th season, Barnidge erupted for 79 catches, 1,043 yards, and 9 touchdowns for Cleveland, becoming one of the league's most productive tight ends overnight. Prior to that year, he had never topped 300 receiving yards in a season, functioning mostly as a blocker and depth piece. With Cleveland cycling through quarterbacks and lacking healthy receivers, Barnidge became the default target and thrived, winning contested catches and consistently finding space in the red zone. He earned a Pro Bowl nod and briefly gave Browns fans something to celebrate during a 3-13 season. The following year, his production was cut nearly in half, and shortly after, he was released. Barnidge never played another NFL snap, making his breakout feel like a statistical mirage. One improbable season turned a journeyman into a star, then vanished as quietly as it arrived, leaving behind a career defined by 16 unforgettable games. Josh Norman. Josh Norman's rise in 2015 transformed him from a solid starter into one of the most feared defenders in football, but the dominance proved difficult to sustain. That season, Norman anchored a Carolina defense that went 15-1, recording 4 interceptions, 2 defensive touchdowns, and countless passes. Quarterbacks never dared to throw. His physical press coverage, instincts in zone, and confidence in trash talk made every matchup personal, and elite receivers often disappeared when lined up across from him. Norman's performance earned All-Pro honors and helped propel the Panthers to the Super Bowl, cementing his reputation as a shutdown corner. The peak was undeniable. After leaving Carolina for Washington, however, the consistency faded. He remained a capable starter, but the intimidation factor and weekly dominance slipped away as scheme changes and age took their toll. That 2015 season stands apart, a perfect alignment of talent, system, and swagger that elevated him to the top of his position. While his career continued, the aura never fully returned, leaving that year as the defining chapter of his legacy. Greg Cook. Greg Cook's career is one of football's greatest what-ifs, condensed into a single brilliant rookie season in 1969. Drafted 5th overall by the Bengals, Cook immediately displayed rare arm talent and composure, throwing for 1,854 yards and 15 touchdowns in just 11 games at a time when passing numbers were modest. He delivered multiple 4-touchdown performances, stretched defenses vertically, and earned AFL Rookie of the Year honors while giving Cincinnati instant credibility. Coaches believed they had a franchise quarterback for the next decade. Then injury intervened. A torn rotator cuff, misdiagnosed and aggravated by playing through pain, destroyed his throwing shoulder before modern surgical fixes existed. Cook never recovered, missing seasons and eventually retiring after brief comeback attempts. His entire NFL legacy rests on that one rookie year, a glimpse of brilliance cut short by circumstance rather than decline. For Bengals fans, Cook remains a symbol of lost potential, proof that sometimes one season is all the league allows before taking everything back.